Spider-Man Brand New Day's second trailer is finally here, and honestly, I can't praise it enough. The more I watch this movie, the more it feels like everything you'd want from a Spider-Man film. Unlike the teaser, which mostly focused on the mystery, this trailer dives much deeper into Peter's evolving powers, his mutation, and even gives us some exciting hints about the story. So let's break everything down one by one. The trailer opens with Scorpion, a character we only got a brief glimpse of in the teaser. We first saw him in Spider-Man Homecoming, and now he's back for revenge. This time, he's robbing a bank. As Spider-Man swings in to stop him, we see Scorpion holding a police officer hostage. The moment Spider-Man arrives, Scorpion lets the officer go and turns his attention toward Peter. But here's something interesting. If you watch closely, Peter's swing isn't completely under his control. He accidentally crashes through a huge billboard while swinging, something Spider-Man would never normally do. This perfectly supports the idea that his powers are evolving, mutating, and Peter no longer has full control over them. The best example comes moments later. Scorpion attacks Spider-Man with his deadly mechanical tail. For a split second, we get a great look at the Scorpion stinger, and honestly, it's incredibly comic accurate. In the comics, Scorpion has gone through multiple suit designs over the years. His tail has changed many times as well. In some versions, it injects deadly venom. In others, it sprays highly corrosive acid. Whatever version they're using here, one thing is clear: this tail is absolutely lethal. Peter grabs the tail, and suddenly his mutation activates. You can literally see it in his eyes. Then he completely loses control. He throws Scorpion around like a rag doll, slams him into the ground, smashes him into a police car, and absolutely destroys him. This is not the Spider-Man we know. It proves Peter isn't just losing control over his swinging, he's also losing control over his strength. Interestingly, we've seen something similar in the comics, not with Peter himself, but in the Superior Spider-Man storyline, where Octo Octavius takes over Peter's body. During his first fight with Scorpion, Octo doesn't realize how powerful Spider-Man actually is. He throws one punch and literally rips Scorpion's jaw off. That's the moment Octo realizes Peter had always been holding back. If Peter ever fought without restraint, he could defeat almost every villain with a single punch. If you pay close attention, this entire sequence is actually the continuation of the scene we saw in the teaser. Scorpion robs the bank, Spider-Man confronts him, and everything we've just discussed unfolds from there. I really hope Mac Gargan has a much bigger role in this movie. It would be disappointing if his character was limited to just a single bank robbery. After that, we see Peter quietly watching Ned and MJ. They've both reached their final semester at MIT, which tells us that quite a bit of time has passed since No Way Home. Their lives have moved forward. Spider-Man's life has moved forward too. The only one who seems stuck is Peter Parker. If you look carefully, Peter has stitches on his face. Normally, thanks to his spider powers, those wounds should heal incredibly fast, and they probably will. But that's not the important part. The important detail is that Peter stitched himself up. Back in Far From Home, Happy was always there to help him, but now, Happy doesn't even remember who Peter Parker is. Peter has no one left. It's little details like this that show just how much the character has matured. Then we see Peter trying to fire his web shooters, but something unexpected happens. Organic webs suddenly burst out, pushing his mechanical web shooters aside. And if you notice, these organic webs look much thicker, denser, and probably much stronger than the synthetic webs Peter normally uses. Even the force with which they're fired seems significantly greater, which actually makes perfect sense. Peter built and calibrated his web shooters himself. He can control exactly how much web fluid they fire and with what force. But these organic webs, he has absolutely no control over them. Trying to understand what's happening to his body, Peter visits Empire State University, where he meets Bruce Banner. Interestingly, we later learn that Peter is actually not a student there. He's simply seeking Bruce's advice because if anyone understands mutation and genetics, it's Bruce Banner. Maybe not the perfect expert, but definitely someone worth talking to. Bruce is no longer Professor Hulk. He's back to his human form, something we already saw in She-Hulk and hinted at after Shang-Chi. He's maintaining that transformation using a special inhibitor device. But this version of the inhibitor looks slightly different. And honestly, that makes sense. Bruce is constantly improving and refining his technology. If you look closely, the device even says gamma suppression active. That means it's actively suppressing Bruce's gamma radiation. Even more interesting, it carries the Stark Industries logo, which raises a fascinating possibility. Maybe Tony started developing technology to suppress the Hulk before his death, and Bruce later completed Tony's unfinished work. That would actually fit perfectly with the comics, where Bruce has repeatedly used inhibitors and gamma-suppressing devices to prevent himself from transforming into the Hulk. In fact, many of Hulk's villains use similar technology against him. These devices drain gamma radiation from his body, forcing him back into Bruce Banner. And here's my theory. I think Peter might eventually use this exact technology to stop the Hulk. How? We'll save that discussion for another video, because honestly, that could get really interesting. Peter explains his mutations to Bruce and asks if there's a way to make them selective. In other words, can he keep the abilities he likes while getting rid of the ones that are becoming a problem? And honestly, this feels exactly like what Peter did in No Way Home with Doctor Strange. Remember how Peter kept asking Strange to modify the memory spell again and again? Every change made the spell more unstable, eventually leading to complete chaos. From Peter's perspective, though, his current situation is becoming just as problematic. While he's swigging through the city, pigeons suddenly stick to his body. He can't properly control his movement anymore. His powers are becoming a genuine problem. The interesting part is that this is actually comic book accurate. A lot of people think Spider-Man sticks to walls because tiny hairs grow from his fingers, just like in Sam Raimi's movies. But that's not how it works in the comics. Peter's powers allow him to manipulate the interatomic forces between two surfaces. Simply put, his body can alter the atomic attraction between himself and almost any object, allowing him to stick to it instantly. And when his powers evolve in the comics, this ability becomes even stronger. There's a famous storyline called The Other. In one scene, Peter is getting his suit repaired when he learns that a building has collapsed. He rushes inside without even wearing his costume to rescue the little girl. But he needs both hands free while climbing through the rubble. So what does he do? He simply places the little girl on his back, and she sticks to him automatically. That's one of the evolved spider abilities we now seem to be seeing in this movie as well. The trailer then shows Peter continuing to struggle with his new powers. He completely loses control of his swing and literally crashes into someone's wedding. Then we get the impressive tank sequence. Spider-Man slides underneath a moving tank while firing his webs. But here's the important detail. Look at how graceful his movements are. Everything is smooth, precise, and perfectly controlled. That tells us this scene most likely happens before Peter's mutation fully begins. His powers are still stable at this point, making it likely that this takes place near the beginning of the movie. Now here's an interesting Easter egg. If you look closely at one of the license plates during this sequence, it reads 11570. That could be a reference to a classic Spider-Man comic, often associated with "And Death Shall Come." In that story, the character who dies is Captain Stacy. So the question is Marvel quietly foreshadowing another tragic death in this movie? That would be a very interesting detail to keep an eye on. Next, we get our first proper look at Will McFarlane's character, played by Tremel Tillman. We still don't know much about him, but based on everything we've seen so far, he appears to be a high-ranking official in the Department of Damage Control, DODC. In the comics, this character is known for being an anti-mutant activist, and the MCU version seems to be heading in a similar direction. It looks like his main objective is to track down, or possibly capture, Sadie Sink's mysterious character. He even tells Spider-Man, "How do you stop a threat you can't even see?" and moments later, we understand exactly what he means. Sadie Sink's character, currently rumored to be called Jean, has abilities that make her almost impossible to track. But Spider-Man is different. Using his spider sense, Peter can actually sense her presence. The trailer even suggests that only Spider-Man is capable of doing this. Then we get a glimpse of her powers in action. At first, I honestly thought Hulk had created that massive shockwave by clapping his hands. For about 2 minutes, I was incredibly excited. But after watching the following shots more carefully, it becomes obvious that this isn't a physical shockwave at all. It's more like a psychic blast, a telepathic wave that affects almost everyone around it. The entire crowd freezes, except for 2 people, the Punisher and Spider-Man. Punisher casually keeps walking as if nothing happened. Spider-Man also remains completely unaffected. There will obviously be some logical explanation for this later in the movie. After that, we see Spider-Man using an AI system that he built himself. As this mysterious entity jumps from one person's body to another, Peter's visor tracks every movement in real time. We even get a first-person view through Spider-Man's mask, where the AI continuously analyzes the target. And here's a fun little detail. If you look closely at the interface, one corner actually says VPN on. Yes, Peter Parker is using a VPN. That's actually a subtle callback to Spider-Man Far From Home. Remember when MJ was talking about traveling to Europe? She told Peter they should keep a VPN turned on so governments couldn't easily track their online activity. It's a tiny detail, but it's nice to see Peter still following her advice. There's another interesting detail on the HUD. You can see the words web polymer along with synthetic. That probably refers to Peter's synthetic web formula, which is actually strange because at this point in the trailer, Peter already has organic webbing. So why is the system still monitoring synthetic web polymers? That could become an important plot point later. Now, I know a lot of people are saying that Sadie Sink's powers don't work like this in the comics, and that's true. But visually, they remind me of Professor Xavier. Xavier often appears to freeze time during telepathic scenes. Of course, time isn't actually stopping, he's simply locking everyone into the same mental state for a brief moment. What we're seeing here feels very similar. Maybe it's not exactly comic accurate, but visually the comparison definitely makes sense.